guys, Tiffany here, and today I am coming to you with another movie review. Now today I am going to be giving you a review of a movie directed by Jamie Langlands, and I hope I pronounced that name correctly. If not, I apologize. But it's a movie that he directed, and it's called The R.I.P Man. Now, another member of the production team was the writer-producer, Reese William Thompson, and then the principal cast also involves Owen Llewellyn, August Porter, Jasmine Keene, and Maximus Pauling. And again, I hope I pronounced everybody's name correctly, as always. Now, The R.I.P Man was originally filmed in the UK, which is pretty cool, and it's also been screened at several film festivals, particularly horror film festivals, and it's been nominated for a few awards, and it also won Best Feature at the Hollywood. Yeah, I'm cheating. I'm looking at my notes. The Hollywood Horror Film Festival. So yeah, we gotta do what we gotta do to make sure we get the facts right. But that's a little bit on the background of the R.I.P. Man. So the basic synopsis of the R.I.P. Man involves a killer who has a very rare oral disease, and he is targeting and stalking this particular group of young adults, college students, young friends, and he is basically stalking them and kind of trying to take them out one by one. And then on the side, we also have this detective who is very, very determined to get to the bottom of this. And then we also get involved with some young man's past, and just kind of going down that rabbit hole. And overall, it's a pretty cool idea for a story for a film, and just the story alone had me interested in seeing the film. Now, when the movie opens up, we are introduced to this young woman, Abigail, and she's obviously getting ready to go out, have some fun. But unbeknownst to her, there is an unwanted guest kind of stalking her, first outside of their home, and then, of course, he makes it inside. So Abigail is going about her business, getting ready for her night out, when unfortunately that ends up being cut short. And it is then we are introduced to the killer, or the R.I.P. Man. And this is when the group of friends, next time we see them, they're sitting at a bar, they're mourning Abigail's death, and including Abigail's boyfriend. And from that point on, that's when we go down the rabbit hole that is the R.I.P. Man. And after that, we're also introduced to the detectives. We get some insight on Abigail's boyfriend, who is obviously very shaken by what happened to her. And he's also shaken even more when he starts to be accused of her murder. And he's accused of actually being the R.I.P. Man. So then, of course, he wants to find out about what's happening and what's going on and clear his name, and, and what happened to Abigail, kind of like what all her friends want to find out about. But then, through here, that's when we start to kind of go down this plot twist of who exactly the R.I.P. Man is, what are his origins, and what are his motives. Now, this movie, for me, wins on creating atmosphere and creating tension throughout most of the movie. I really liked the use of the lighting, use of the camera angles, and use of, of fog and just other effects, just to really create this really cool tension, especially when we are being like taken into the killer's world. And one interesting thing about the killer is that he is never masked. Like you basically, you see him from the beginning, which I thought was a very kind of interesting choice, because a lot of the time in these movies, the killer is masked, and then at the very end, he's unmasked, and then you get to see the killer for like who they really are. But in this one, it's like you see him from the beginning. However, for me, that didn't really take away from the mystery and the tension of the movie, just because the rest of the movie, most of it was actually, I thought it was very well done. So for me, it didn't really like take away from it. In fact, and they made him, really just, kind of creepy looking. Like you wouldn't want him to be, this is not somebody you would want to be, following you around at night, or even the daytime for that matter. So it didn't really bother me that, the killer, the R.I.P man, wasn't masked or anything like that. I also thought that the cinematography was really good. The story, the script was, well done and like I said, very interesting. It kept me interested. It kept me watching until the end. At no point was I ever kind of like, I'll just go do something else and listen to this in the background. I mean, it kept me interested. I did want to, find out about what was going on, and really what was up with this R.I.P man, this killer. And when we get to the killer's motive, it was actually a very kind of cool and unique idea. And when they were just kind of delving into his past and, and finding out more information about him. And another thing that I liked about the production was the use, how they used some music to really create that tension and just really add to the overall atmosphere that, the lighting, the cinematography, and all that stuff was already creating. And from the beginning, there's a lot of really great tension. A lot of, just really great buildup. And I thought the pacing was good. I really thought that they did a great job there. Right, so the pacing was very good. And, there were some very creepy moments that, definitely held my attention. And, I definitely kind of felt the feelings of dread that the characters were feeling during some of the more creepier scenes. So I really thought that, the production team did a phenomenal job with that. So good job there. And like I said, it definitely kept me watching. But of course, you can have the best camera angles, the best lighting, the best production in the world, but if you don't have good actors, it will fall flat. And I thought the acting and the character development was also very good. I thought that was pretty solid. I actually found myself caring about the characters, which I know sometimes and I love my independent filmmakers, but I know sometimes they do tend to struggle there with really creating characters that you can relate to, that you can, kind of get into their story and then actually care about what happens to them. And, and it's not a slight to anybody. It's just, it's just one of those things where, kind of you got to practice makes perfect, and with each project you keep getting better and better. But I thought that the character development here was really good. They actually kind of gave you they did a good job with giving you a glimpse into who the characters were without going into this big long opus into their backgrounds, but it was just enough to actually make you care about what happened to them, or at least that's how it was with me. So I and the actors were all good. I can't think of anyone who really stood out to me to where I was like, okay, but yeah, I mean, the principal cast, was definitely, pretty strong, and yeah, and I thought that part was also very good too about it. And one interesting note, and at least this is, this was just the impression that I had. I really, it was like, there were definitely times when the movie was giving like late 90s, early 2000s horror, like, going back to movies like Urban Legend and even like the original Scream movies, Valentine. They really kind of, just that whole theme, like and even some of the use of like the atmosphere and the lighting. There were times when it was giving like late 90s, early 2000s, like nostalgic horror. So that was like one thing that I also wanted to note as well. And it's kind of, it's this really unique blend of, it's like part slasher film, part crime drama, and it really, and the twist at the end, it's very, it's interesting, and it's tragic, and it's yeah, but I really, that was one thing I wanted to note too, was that it does kind of give like at times that kind of late 90s, early 2000s horror. Now, on the subject of slashers, like I said, this is not really a full-on slasher film. Like I said, it's kind of like part horror slasher, part crime drama. Like it kind of gives both. And there's not, if you're hoping for, like, the only thing is, like, if you're hoping for kind of like a lot of gore, a lot of like special effects in that area, this movie doesn't really have a lot of that. Now, like I said, they really did a good job with how they made the killer up and made him look, and the effects that they do use, like they do a very good job with it. But if you're somebody who likes more gore with your like kind of slasher type movies, this isn't, like I said, you're not gonna find that here. A lot of the gore and the killings is implied, like there's a lot of implying there, and this is, and this is just kind of like a little nitpick. I don't know, I guess nitpick on my end, where there were a couple of times when they did show the aftermath, and I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, in real life it would have been a lot more gory than that. But you know what? But for me, it didn't really take away from the film too much, because the rest of it was very well done. And like I said, a lot of the gore and the killing is implied, but you still feel a lot of the tension, and just, and you do kind of feel like, oh, I didn't want that person to die, so it really didn't like take away too much from me. But I did want to note that, because I know some people do like a lot of like gore with their slasher movies. So but that's, so if you're kind of looking for that, you won't really see that in this movie, but you will see a pretty compelling storyline. You will see, good character development. You will see very cool atmosphere, and pretty much like a very engaging story, and a good use of the resources that they had. And you know, I definitely commend them for that. I definitely think the best feature award that they got was very well deserved. And yeah, overall, I very much enjoy this film. And yeah, I would definitely recommend checking it out and giving it a chance. So if I had to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 5, I would say 4 out of 5, definitely. Like I said, very well done. And definitely kudos to the cast and crew for coming together and making a very cool and kind of a unique film. And yeah, I definitely recommend, if that, you know, if this concept appeals to you, I definitely recommend checking it out. I do believe it's on Amazon Prime right now, and I'll check out and like leave a link in the description of you know, of where you can see the film. But yeah, definitely, I recommend checking out the R.I.P Man. And like I said, congratulations to the cast and crew for making a film that was overall, like, you know, definitely very, very well done. So yeah, I enjoyed it. So yep, that's my review of the R.I.P Man. And if you've seen it, I'd love to hear what you thought of it. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. So, and yeah, support independent film always. All right, thanks so much for watching, and thank you to the cast and crew. Thank you to the production team of the R.I.P Man for sending me the screener and giving me this opportunity to review your film. So, all right, thanks so much, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and you know, hit that bell for notifications on when I upload. And I will see you in the next video. All right, take care and stay spooky.